Thank you. Thank you for attending this conference, and a lot of the sentiments echoed by Gwen are certainly evident in the market that we're looking at over the next few years. Uranium's been probably the hottest commodity of the last year, and I think we're just getting going. The picture you see on the front of the slide deck, that's actually not a stock photo. That's our uranium. We just started in production in November. Had the grand opening here about a month ago. I will be making some forward-looking statements, and we'll start by some of the speculation on the market. Right now, we're 100% focused on in situ development of uranium in the United States. We don't do conventional mining. In fact, we're far from a mining company in the traditional sense. We do everything through wells, plumbing, pipes, pumps, and very little, if any, surface disturbance other than the wellheads. This is much more akin to the oil and gas industry with multiple pay zones and sedimentary rocks at depth, although all of our depths are quite modest. Why are we focused 100% in the U.S.? Well, because it's the world's largest nuclear consumer, consuming about 48 million pounds a year. That's expected to remain the largest consumer in the world until perhaps early next decade, when it may be eclipsed or certainly rivaled by China. You can look at the graph on the left and see how our supply has been dwindling. And you can see on the right that in 1980 we were actually self-sufficient. Right now we're almost 100% reliant upon imports. Roughly half of that's secure, coming from Australia and Canada. The other half, however, passes through the port of St. Petersburg, and I don't mean Florida. Mr. Putin's in charge of it. He doesn't produce but about 20% of that net import. But he does control the shipping lanes on all of it. Right now in front of the U.S. Congress, the House passed with almost a unanimous bipartisan resolution to ban all Russian uranium and enriched uranium products, that is the enriched material that goes into a reactor, processed uranium, with a 5-year phase-out period for any utilities that can't buy it without going to Russia. That was held up in the Senate. Looks like it'll pass in the next month. There are 2 or 3 initiatives to get it passed on the Senate side. Biden has indicated he will sign it. Then comes the big question is, what does Mr. Putin do when he's faced with that? My suggestion to you is that it's at least a 50-50 chance he's going to go, hey, that's a splendid idea. Why don't we start tomorrow and forget about the 5-year time frame? The uranium to him is a very small drop in the bucket compared to his oil income. Nonetheless, the U.S. does have the ability to be self-sufficient, as you can see there. It's just like everything else, we outsourced it, and now we're having to pay for it. We are a production-oriented company. We don't do exploration per se. We take projects that are advanced and ready to pop into the production slot. We've got a team that's been built particularly with the emphasis of production. We've got the most experienced team in situ production in the Western world, going all the way from the board of directors all the way down to our people in the field. We've got over 100 employees now, and all of the trained positions are well-versed in situ uranium. Have a large pipeline of projects coming in, here again, all in situ. Talked about the team. We do have a balanced concept of how we sell our uranium. About half of that is into the spot market, about half of it is into contracts. And that's assuming we have a stable market, which we haven't seen for some time. I'm not sure we'll see it for some time to come, given the shortages. So right now, the only thing we're looking at are contracts that have collars that or are spot related. The collars provide us a floor price, generally somewhere around spot, and the upper collar would be somewhere in the 20 to sometimes as much as 40% above the floor for the ceiling. We have 3.6, actually about 4.2 million pounds contracted for the next decade, well under our production goals. We also have a rather aggressive non-core asset disposal program that's brought in about $30 million to the company. Here you can see we're about a $700 million US market cap, right at $1 billion Canadian. We've made a remarkable transition in the last 6 months. We were $60 million in debt after having purchased the plant you saw in the front piece of the deck. Sorry, not on this one, I'll show you again shortly, but the Alta Mesa project in Texas, and virtually no cash in the bank, 5 or 6 million, with no revenue. Transpose that to now, we've got $73 million in the bank, 0 debt, and revenue coming in from Rosita. with significantly more revenue coming in from the much larger Alta Mesa plant that starts in the next couple of months. You can see here in the picture, this is a remote ion exchange plant. These are very portable in that you can take those to a small well field or a moderate-sized well field, load up the resin into the slurry truck you see there, and then haul it to your central plant. enCore does own 3 of the 11 plants in the U.S., and so this gives us an effective production radius of around 500 miles from our plants in Texas. All 3 of our plants are in Texas, which is the most beneficial state, easiest state to work in. We've got what they call agreement states in Texas and Wyoming, which means you do not deal with the federal government. All of those regulatory duties have been ceded to the state. And to give you an idea, we were 20 months from submitting our project permit for resuming production at Rosita until the day we started producing uranium. 20 months in a Western world country. It's phenomenal. You can see the board of directors here. I'm not going to read them all to you. To just give you a bit of background, I was co-founder of Energy Metals Corp. We were quite active in the 04 to 07, 08 timeframe. Started with a 1.7 million market cap, sold out in 2008 for 1.8 billion to Uranium One. Carried on with them for a couple of years and then started enCore. Paul Goranson, our CEO, is probably the most experienced engineer. He's built 4 or 5 of the last plants. He's operated over 20 well fields, and it's under his leadership that we've achieved such good production. Dennis Stover is one of the inventors of the process, and you can see the rest of the board quite experienced in this. I'm going to skip over the nuclear fuel cycle other than to tell you the utilities purchase each one of these components separately. Ours is the initial phase. Once we produce the yellow cake and deliver it to the converter, we're paid and we're out of the cycle. It takes about 2.5 years to get uranium from the ground into a power plant. You can see here in the darker colors, this is our goal. We'll have a 3 million pound a year production rate within 3 years, moving that up to 5 million within 5 years. All of the first initial growth in the first goal of 3 million pounds will come out of Texas. And you can see that includes a number of different projects that will be feeding 2 of our plants. One of our plants will be held in reserve to come on, but we'll have 2 fully functional shortly. Later expansion goes into South Dakota and Wyoming, and that gets us up to our 5 million rate. We recently sold 30% interest in our largest project, Alta Mesa, to Boss Energy, one of the leading companies in Australia, incredibly well-funded, very large uranium producer in Australia, are coming online. And with their money that basically put $70 million into our treasury, that allowed us to accelerate all of our production plans by the amount of the stippled bars you see there. So instead of working linearly on one project at a time, we're able to advance all of our projects simultaneously. We're quite active in M&A, and we have one rule of thumb. We will either look at things that add significant recoverable pounds or that bring our pounds to production quicker. And this transaction clearly did that. Just a brief video here. I'll show you a little bit about our plants. Texas is, as I say, the best place to be working on, and very energy friendly, very business intense state. You're looking at our Rosita property here again, the remote facility. This is about 2 miles from the plant, and it was just logistically easier to do this than to put in trunk lines. We do have enough equipment already in-house to build about 6 of these remote plants. Just a matter of refurbishing them, such as this. We've got about $1.5 million in terms of refurbishing the plant and putting it into production. This is the much larger Alta Mesa project, the one that will be coming online here in the next month or 2. And you can see the rather large trunk lines leaving out of the plants covering a 200,000 acre property. We've only explored about 5 to 10% of this project. Yet we know there's over 50 miles of mineralized roll fronts that we've only looked at 12 miles or 12% of. So we're going to be here for several decades. We have a 19 million pound resource already drilled out on this, and it's certainly going to be the centerpiece of our activities going forward. Again, the Boss transaction infusing cash will move that Alta Mesa production forward rather dramatically. Just a quick diagram. The only thing we put into the ground is oxygen. We pump groundwater out, fortify it with oxygen, send it back down. It dissolves the uranium, pump it to the surface, run it through what's essentially an industrial water treatment plant, and recover the uranium. Repeat again over and over by refortifying the fluids with oxygen. We recycled over 99% of the water, so water use is minimal, very environmentally practical. Here you can see South Texas, and these are the projects that we'll be putting into production. You can see the 3 plants, Kingsville Dome, Alta Mesa, and Rosita. Rosita is in production. Alta Mesa is hot on its heels, and Kingsville we're holding on standby until we get up to capacity. Once your plant's built, you're getting to capacity simply a function of drill rigs and plumbing, and that's all there is to it. We also can expand any of our plants' total capacity without any permits or amendments to our existing permits. Here again, the 19 million pounds, rather large project. Be glad to talk to you about any of these in more detail. Once again, we have the other assets as a part of our company. We have probably the largest existing database in between what I own personally and what the company owns of uranium records in the United States, owning the Union Carbide, Hecla, Ranchers Exploration, UV Industries, W.R. Grace, and most recently the Getty Oil collection of geologic data, which gives us a real up in this business. So in summary, we've got existing production. That production is going to be ramping up consistently as we go forward. We do expect to become cash flow positive in the 4th quarter of this year and continue our accelerated expansion, providing clean energy for the country coming forward, and led by a team of experts in the field, cash flow, other assets to support it. Encourage any of you to come down if you get a chance and visit. This picture was our grand opening with former Governor Rick Perry and former Energy Secretary under the Trump administration on the ribbon cutting. Paul Goranson, our CEO, on the right, and our head plant manager right next to him, and the COO in the background. So thank you very much. Look forward to talking afterwards.